My name's Wendie Bee from Stampin' Up, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make this really awesome card. Now as you can see, it's much larger than a standard A2 size card, so it makes a huge impact. The best part is that even though it's a custom size card, I designed it to fit within a proper, regular, standard number 10 envelope. So let's go ahead and get started. Throughout this tutorial, you're going to see me stamping on this mat. This mat is because with photopolymer images, there is no foam in between the stamp and the block that's mounted on. Therefore, you might have a hard time getting a nice clear image. If you don't have one of these blocks at home, what you can also do is use quite a few pieces of paper piled together. You just need something that's going to give you some cushion in between your stamp and the paper that you're actually stamping on. So you're going to see this throughout the video, and I'm going to use this to make sure that I'm getting a nice clear stamp, especially with the stamp set that we're going to be using. It is called the Celebrate Today. This stamp set is in the new 2015 Stampin' Up Occasions catalog, and I just love it. It's very fun and super versatile. The stamp that we're going to be using today is this balloon image. All of these images come in the set, and this of course is a photopolymer set, as I had mentioned. So let's go ahead. I'm going to grab the two images that we're going to be using today, and we're going to start stamping it out. Before you go ahead and stamp out though, you're going to want to make sure that you have all the card stock and cut and ready. These are the pieces we're going to be using today. You can find all the measurements for all the cardstock pieces on my blog. You can find the link down below in the comments. I'm using Pear Pizzazz, a piece of Whisper White, some of our really fun gold glimmer paper. Look how sparkly that is. I just love it. And a piece of Pool Party cardstock as well. In addition, you're going to want to have another piece of Whisper White cardstock so that you can stamp out your balloons on. So I'm going to leave this up right now, and this is what we're going to start stamping on. The ink that we're going to be using is Melon Mambo, Pumpkin Pie, and Tempting Turquoise. So I'm going to start with the Melon Mambo pink first. You're going to see me go off camera so I can clean my stamp on my Stampin' Scrubber here. It's very handy. It has a wet and a dry side, so I'm going to spritz it with the Stampin' Mist cleaner just so I can clean off my stamp in between colors. So you can see me, you'll hear me doing that off camera. If you don't have one of these Stampin' Scrub mats, you can always order one from the link down below, or you can just use a baby wipe. But make sure that you do clean your stamp, of course, in between each image that you're stamping, and also, of course, when you're done with it before you store it. So let's go ahead and get started. When I'm mounting my photopolymer stamps, the first thing that I do is I apply the block to the stamp. I place the stamp image side down, and I press the block onto it. And then I pick up the image that way. And we're going to be starting using the Melon Mambo ink pad. Now, as I said, with photopolymer stamps, you want to make sure that you get a nice clear image. So I have this mat underneath me. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that when I ink up my stamp, that it's got coverage all the way around. And sometimes when your ink pad is quite juicy and full of ink, you'll see little bubbles. So I'm just going to give it a second and let the bubbles settle down before I stamp and press down. The other thing that I like to do is when I do stamp, I press nice and evenly across the whole image until I can see that it's been pressed down, and I wait for a second. What I'm doing by waiting is I'm letting the ink absorb into the paper and get a nice clear stamped image. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull my stamp off, and there you have it. It's a perfectly stamped image. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same thing with the next two colors in Tempting Turquoise and Pumpkin Pie. Now that I have everything stamped out, I'm going to be using the coordinating balloon die cuts from the stamp set. I've put it onto a magnetic mat, but it comes with coordinating images to die cut each image in the stamp set. So there's a die to go with each balloon. There is a pennant die to go with all of the pennants on the stamp set as well. These two here. There is a die to cut out the tassel, as you can see here. And then there's a die for this cute little bow. And the great thing about the bow is you can use it on many different things, and you can stamp in lots of different colors. So it's very flexible as well. So I'm going to go ahead and use the balloon die and die cut my stamped images using my Big Shot. Okay, so I've gone ahead and die cut out the first of the two balloons, but I wanted to show you the third die cut and just make sure that I go through with the layers. So of course I've got my top Big Shot plate, and then underneath I've got my cutting plate and magnetic platform. As you can see, I have not yet taken the die out of the die cut out of the die, and I find that if you try and pull it out, as you can see, the little part of the end of the balloon gets stuck. So I just use my thumb and I pop it out instead of trying to pull it out. That way you don't warp your paper, and you also don't rip that little piece off the end. Now that we have the balloons cut, we want to go ahead and create our fun background. And the ink that we're going to use for this is called Coastal Cabana. But what I'm going to be using is the re-inker for this. So I'm going to add just a couple drops of the ink here. Alternatively, if you don't have the ink refill for the ink that we're using, what you can also do is take your ink head and just squeeze it together. As you can see, I'm using pistachio pudding, and when I've squeezed it together, as you can see, there's ink now on the lid, and you can use your aqua painter and pick that color up here. So what I've done is I just picked up just a little bit of color, and I'm just dabbing away some of the extras. I'm just going to start drawing lines, and it's definitely not going to be straight. You don't want them to look symmetrical. And I'm going to alternate, starting on the left and then the right, and then starting on the left again, and then starting on the right, back and forth, back and forth. And I'm just going to draw some lines. Again, not symmetrical, not straight. Some of them may be a little bit darker, some of them may be a little bit lighter. I'm just basically creating a background to set my balloons on. This is a Whisper White cardstock, so you're going to want to give that just a minute to dry. Now that our card base is dry from applying the lines with our aqua painter, I'm going to go ahead and take our pieces. The last part that we need to complete before assembling the card is creating the sentiment piece that goes along the bottom of the card. Now, I've embossed this in white. Alternatively, if you don't want to take the time to emboss, or you don't have the tools to do that, you can also use any kind of white ink. Our Whisper White craft ink will do. So using our white embossing powder, I'm going to go ahead and grab my trusty embossing buddy. Now this is basically just an anti-static bag that will make sure that no little pieces of embossing powder go where I don't want them to go, so I have a nice clean image. With my Versamark ink, I've already go ahead and picked up my sentiment stamp. We're using the Celebrate sentiment from there, and I'm going to go ahead and apply the Versamark ink. I'm going to try and center it as much as I can on the piece of Pool Party cardstock that we've already cut. It's going to press down and gently lift off. Apply some white embossing powder and lightly tap off the excess. And use my heat gun and apply some heat and emboss this fun piece. As you can hear, I've now turned my heat gun on. What I like to do is I like to heat up my heat gun before I actually apply it to my piece to be embossed. The reason why that is that make sure you get a nice even embossing and you don't overheat or underheat parts and have a nice clear image. Don't apply too much heat, as you will notice that the embossing powder will actually go through the paper. So just until you can see that the powder is turned from powder to a raised sentiment, and there you are. We are ready to now assemble the card. So to go ahead and make the confetti little stars that you see placed all over the card here, I'm going to use my star border punch with the gold glimmer paper. And sometimes I find it's a little bit hard to get the punch through the paper, so I put the paper upside down so that the cutting side of the punch meets with the regular paper side and not the glitter side first. And there's some fun pieces of confetti. We're going to be using all the different sizes. The first thing I'm going to do is apply dimensionals to the back of each of my balloon pieces. You want to make sure that you apply one in the middle so that it doesn't sag, but what you don't want to do, like I just did there, is apply the dimensional just to either the left or the right side of where the balloon is coming down. And there is a reason for that, is because the strings are going to be coming down and you don't want the dimensionals to be in the way of the string coming straight down. So apply dimensionals to either side of the base of the balloon, and then one on either side here. You can even put one in the middle if you think that there wasn't enough support. Just like that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my Whisper White baker's twine will be just over 7 inches long. So let's just say cut 3 pieces of 7-inch Whisper White. There we go. I'm also going to use dimensionals to raise the Celebrate sentiment up off of the gold glimmer paper. And I'm going to pop up the sentiment to here first. There we go. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the string that I'm going to use for each balloon. I'm going to stick it down with a piece of sticky strip. Now I'm sure you could do it underneath the dimensional. I tried that. Whatever method works for you to get your string to stay down. Pull the backing off of the balloon and do the same for all of my balloons. So the first balloon I'm going to put down is the pumpkin pie, and that's just going to go sort of in the top corner. You want to leave some room around the corners here to make sure that you've got some space, just a little bit of space. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that down. The next balloon I'm going to do, I'm going to slip the turquoise balloon underneath the round part of the balloon and the little base there. As you can see, just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and stick that down. I'm going to pull the strings so that they're now sort of pointing the same way, and the string for the orange balloon is going underneath. And then I'm going to go ahead and apply the Melon Mambo balloon over top of the turquoise balloon and just pull it down just a little bit. And I'm just going to tuck that underneath that, just like that. Now that we have our balloon stuck down, I'm going to show you a little trick on how I got the strings to behave properly and sit on the card the way I wanted them to. I'm going to go ahead and pop up the Celebrate with dimensionals, but the first thing you're going to do is I'm going to use sticky strip again and just tape down all the strings at once first. So I'm going to take my Celebrate, I'm going to flip it upside down. I have a good idea of where I want it to sit, right about there. So I've got the other strings in my hand. I'm going to turn it over, and I'm just going to lightly tack down the strings. So now you can see that the strings are where I want them to be, and they're not going to go willy-nilly. I don't have to worry about gluing or anything like that, sticking stuff down. I'm going to take some more dimensionals. Now I'm going to apply the dimensionals to the back of my sentiment again. Other side of the taped area, just to make sure that it doesn't sag. And if you wanted to, you can also adjust how tight or how taut your strings are, and just go ahead and press down when you're really happy with it. That way now it's super stuck. I'm going to go ahead and pull the backings off of my dimensionals and stick it down with the strings. Make sure that it's straight on both sides, and there you go. As you can see, the 7-inch tail strings are a little bit too long, so I'm going to go ahead and trim them. And the last part, almost done, Stampers. All I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a little bit of Tombow, and I'm just going to put a small dab of it on my block. You really don't need much. And I'm going to start putting down some of my star confetti that I made. But I have just a little bit of tiny glue. I'm using the largest star, then the medium star, and then perhaps even the smallest star. And I'm just going to put them just to sort of fill up the white space. I'm going to go ahead and continue doing that. And there you have it. There's a little bit of white space at the bottom, so I'm going to also make sure that I apply just a few stars at the bottom as well, because we don't want to have any empty looking space. So there's one there and maybe one more. Again, it's however you see fit. Your card base is done now, and the last thing we're going to do is just go ahead and stick it to the Pear Pizzazz card base that we've already created. And there you have it, Stampers. Your card is now complete. Thanks for joining me, and have a great day. Bye!